part of the mountain has broken off, and the resulting cliff stands as tall as 4 coconut trees standing over each other. And what a huge cavern at its feet! Darkness of all the world must reside in it, the origin of the new moon night. What huge rocks have slithered out of that cavern, as if thousands of years got frozen and lie like rocks while emerging from that broken womb. The ocean's mains collide on those boulders. One by one, the waves come screaming and break into smithereens as they emerge from the cavern. How stupid the rocks! The blue-black foaming water returns again. Again and again, the waves are drawn to the cavern like gigantic whales and emerge from the cavern howling like a prehistoric man shattered with broken bones. Dho, dho, dhas. It is a call to the secret of the universe given by someone. The call spreads wide. It echoes across the surrounding 20-25 miles like a mad woman. Dho, dho, dhas. The howling continues. It will continue in future too. What a mysterious and foreboding backdrop. The lines I just read are from the opening paragraph of the novel Kondura. Today, in the 63rd episode of Granthyatra, we are going to discuss this book by C.T. Khanolkar. Come, let us go to this small seashore village in Konkan. Chintamani Trembak Khanolkar was born in 1930 at a village called Baglanchi Rai in Vengurle block. He completed his schooling from Vengurle, Savantwadi and Mumbai. From managing the counter of an eatery run by his mother to supervising a student's hostel and being a staff artist at the All India Radio, Khanolkar tried his hand at different kinds of jobs. Despite a life full of hardships, Khanolkar was a gifted writer. He put his stamp on 3 genres of literature: novel, play and poetry. His novels such as Python, Trishanku and Dark is the Night and So is the Pot became famous, while his plays Ajab Nyay Vartulacha, Kalaya Tasmai Namah, Ek Shunya Bajirao illuminated the Marathi theatre by their unique content and form. He wrote poetry by the pen name Arti Prabhu, and his poems were published as collections with titles Gift of the Stars, Arms, and Lamp and the Dusk. Kondura, published in 1966, is the story of the journey of Parshuram Tatya from being a common man to becoming a godman. Through this tale, Khanolkar explores some fundamental questions such as the blurring of the boundaries between virtue and vice with the rise and fall of a person's selfishness, the discrepancy between thought and action, and the fallacy of life despite a torrent of happenings. Parshuram Tatya leaves home in a fit of anger one day following some disagreement with his family. On the barren wilderness outside the village, he meets an ascetic who gives him a root that has the power to cause miscarriage. Go back, your path is pre-decided. Use this root for the right cause and observe celibacy, the ascetic tells him and leaves. Considering the ascetic's words as an infallible command, Parshuram Tatya returns home and thus begins a series of strange incidents in his life. He becomes restless with the thoughts of the powerful root in his possession and keeps wondering about its possible victim. Although he is aware that he is doing injustice to his good-natured wife, he observes strict celibacy. To keep his mind occupied, he commissions the digging of a well in the backyard of his house. In this agitated state of mind, one day he meets the carpenter's wife who has lost her mind. The lady tells him that she is possessed by the village deity goddess Bhavkai. She asks him to convey the message of the goddess to the villagers that the temple of the goddess that lies in ruins should be renovated. While collecting money for the temple renovation, Parashuram Tatya meets the rich Naroba Jadiye, who is a shameless sinner. From this point onwards, as the novel story progresses, Tatya's moral stature begins to degrade. Parashuram Tatya, who at the beginning of the novel is a simple man who dreams of working hard in Mumbai to be able to create a small household for himself, turns into a greedy, covetous and pretentious man who is hungry for fame, covets another man's wife and who violates his wife and abets her suicide. On the one hand, his mind thus runs out of his control, while on the other, he is tormented by some fundamental questions. How does Naroba Jadiye enjoy all that wealth despite being such a sinner? He wonders. Why do I continue to hear the sound of the divine bell even after I have become an accomplice in Naroba's misdeeds, have sullied my celibacy, tarnished Anasuya's purity and caused Parvati's miscarriage? He ponders. Through these questions and through the fate of the novel's characters, Khanolkar explores the concept of vice and virtue, the role of destiny and human faith. This narrative has the backdrop of the nature in Konkan. Through the discrepancy between the deceptive outward appearance of nature and people and the opposing internal intention, an impactful allegory is created. Khanolkar's language changes effortlessly according to the content being described and projects the feelings of the characters through the description of the surrounding atmosphere. When Tatya's restless mind doesn't let him sleep and he steps out of home, Khanolkar describes the scene in these words. Cold darkness had spread over the field. The coconut orchard opposite the field seemed to have torn the curtain with its tangled vertical and horizontal lines. In the darkness, the shapes of the objects looked like strange beasts. It seemed as if someone was turning things over hugely with his dark paw, was establishing his way, his right to every object. The coconut tree did not look like a coconut tree. It looked like a huge skeleton just descended in some kind of darkness. But every shape was actual. After a while, it was going to turn around and change. Even then, it was going to be as actual as it was now. I was witnessing the faces of all palms and trees that are being smeared by a paw like a vulture. The primordial desires and aspirations in the human mind and man's cravings for pleasure that pushes him to commit sins despite the pricking of his conscience, as well as the mysterious forces in nature, faith beyond man's rational thinking, and the uncontrolled behavior of masses also impact the narrative of this novel in a major way. Crowds that are intoxicated with the superstitious belief that their ordinary lives would be transformed by the blessings of a godman, that they would gain something extraordinary after being blessed by the goddess in the human form, are not swayed by individual sorrows. The young child of the carpenter's wife dies after she commits suicide. A woman beaten up by her brother-in-law pleads for help with her swollen face. But the devotees at the temple and Tatya, who rules over their emotions, do not pay attention to these things and continue to dance. Jaganmata! Tatya roared, standing on the platform of the lamp top. He too began to dance with the others. Clouds of dust began to rise. Fists full of vermilion were thrown in the air. A layer of vermilion settled on people's heads and shoulders. Flowers were thrown intermittently. Vithoba Rakhumai, Vitthal Rakhumai, Jaganmata. People raved with anything that came to their mind. No one was in their senses. They all danced. They were engrossed in the beat of drums and cymbals. They were overwhelmed by the music. They shouted the name of God in a daze. That half a mile long region had come alive. It was teeming with enthusiasm. Anyone who came into that region seemed to grow wings and his mind would take flight with a peculiar joy. All his sorrows, preoccupations, and worries would vanish. Many would repent being born a human. People thronged to that region to fulfill the objective of their human birth. The villagers' faith in the divine aspect of wild elements of nature, such as the cavern of Kondura, and their belief that it controls their future, their conviction that the ascetic on the wilderness is the personification of the cavern of Kondura, the faithful who regard the carpenter's wife as the goddess, the midnight tolling of the bell in the ashram, whose sound can be heard only by Granthyatra, the root that can cause miscarriage, Naroba, who mercilessly tortures Vasu and rapes the carpenter's wife. All this creates a fearsome and inevitable fate in the novel. We can now appreciate the suggestiveness of the opening paragraph of the novel that we read at the beginning. The waves that are broken to smithereens, the boulders slithering out of a broken womb, Kondura's roar resembling the cries of a devastated and insane woman act as a premonition to the events that are to happen in the future. All these elements create a current that flows from purity to destruction, and Tatya gets carried away in that flow. When Tatya hears the bell tolling for the first time, he thinks, "How will I find my path in life? This whole world has spread shadows and walls and darkness around me like a puzzle. Where do I go from here? Who can I approach for advice?" All of a sudden, Tatya felt lonely. There is no one who belongs to me. I am only a puppet in the hands of some invisible force, he thought. Today we have with us Dr. Madhavi Vaidya, who has written critical books on Khanolkar's writings. Let us hear from her more about Kondura, the novel that comments on human life through the journey of its protagonist from Parshram Tatya to Reverend Tatya.
कोंडुरा. खानोलकरांच्या समग्र साहित्यावरती PhD करताना मला खूप खूप समाधानाचे क्षण मिळाले. त्यांच्या कलाकृतींनी ते दिले आणि त्यातली ही एक कलाकृती म्हणजे त्यांची कोंडुरा ही कादंबरी. रात्रकाळी, घागरकाळी आणि अजगर ह्या अगोदर प्रसिद्ध झालेल्या कादंबऱ्यांच्या यशावर कोंडुरानं शिक्कामोर्तब केलं. श्रीमती मगम नातूंना कोंडुरा ही मराठी साहित्याचा मानदंड ठरावा अशी तोलामोलाची कलाकृती वाटते. कोंडुऱ्याच्या अपूर्व यशानं मराठी साहित्य क्षेत्रातले अनेक जण भारावून गेलेले आहेत. श्रीयुत श्रीना पेंडसे यांनाही वाटतं की कोंडुरा ही खानोलकरांची आणि मराठी भाषेतली सुद्धा एक श्रेष्ठ कादंबरी आहे. या कादंबरीचा थाट असा आहे की कोणत्याही भाषेत ती पहिल्या रांगेतल्या मानकऱ्यात जाऊन बसावी. खानोलकर एके ठिकाणी म्हणतात, अजूनही कुठेतरी घरी, कुठेतरी गर्दीत, कुठेतरी प्रवासात अंतर्मुख झालो की प्रथम कानावर येतो, भास होतो तो त्या बागलाच्या राईच्या मठातल्या घंटांच्या नादांचा. हीच तर जगण्यातली मोठी गंमत असते. प्रत्येकाला स्वतःच्या जगण्याला एक संदर्भ देता येतो. या खोल नकळत रुजून राहिलेल्या संस्कारांचा तो असतो. माझ्या कोंडुरा या कादंबरीत मी नकळतच वर्णन करून जातो ते या मठाचं. कोकणातील परंपरेनुसार चालत आलेल्या देवदेवेस्कीच्या कल्पना, जागजागी स्थापन केलेल्या वेतोबा, रवळनाथांची देवळं, त्या देवतांवरच्या अंधश्रद्धा आणि कोकणचं अद्भुत पण भुरळ घालणारं असं सौंदर्य, तरीही मनाला झपाटून टाकणारा एक प्रकारचा भकासपणा, या सर्वाच्या मिश्रणानं तयार झालेले गूढ वातावरण या कादंबरीत पार्श्वभूमी म्हणून येतं. कोकणच्या परिसराप्रमाणेच तिथल्या व्यक्ती त्यांच्या भावभावनांसह आणि गुणदोषांसह या कादंबरीत प्रकट होताना दिसतात. तिथल्या व्यक्तींची मनं श्रद्धेनं भारावलेली असतात. गावातील एखाद्या परंपरेनं चालत आलेल्या भव्य भीषण दैवी चमत्कारापुढे नतमस्तक होऊन आपलं जीवन जगणं हा त्यांच्या जीवन पद्धतीतील एक महत्वाचा असा भाग असतो. गावाच्या एखाद्या दैवताला नवस करून कौल लावण्यात, त्याच्या आदेशाप्रमाणे वागण्यातच या लोकांना साफल्य वाटतं. साक्षात्कारी पुरुषाला तर अनन्यसाधारण महत्व प्राप्त होतं. त्याच्या आदेशानुसार सर्व जीवन व्यवहाराला गती मिळत असते. गावात त्याचा दरारा निर्माण झाल्यानं त्याचा संशय घेणारा सुद्धा अगदी विरळच असतो व तोही अल्पावधीतच गावातील सामूहिक अंधश्रद्धेला बळी पडतो. आपण, आपली जातपात, गाव या पलीकडे विचार करण्याची कुवत या सर्वसामान्यांमध्ये नसते. या कादंबरीच्या रचनेचा मूलाधार हा सर्वसामान्यांची श्रद्धा आहे. प्रत्येक माणूस कशावर तरी श्रद्धा ठेवून जीवन जगत असतो. या श्रद्धेत मानसिक शांती, समाधान आणि सामर्थ्यही शोधत असतो. अशी श्रद्धा ठेवणं ही एक आदिम अशी प्रवृत्ती आहे. माणूस ही श्रद्धा कोणत्याही स्वरूपात मूर्तावर किंवा अमूर्तावर ठेवत असतो. श्रद्धेच्या आसऱ्यानं जीवन जगणं हा माणसाच्या जीवन जगण्याच्या पद्धतीतील एक प्रमुख भाग आहे. श्रद्धेचे मूळ खरं तर भयगंडात असतं. ही भीती कसलीही असू शकते. मृत्यू, स्वतःतील दुबळेपणा, आपलं काही वाईट घडेल अशी शंका, या भयापासून सुटका करून घेण्यासाठी मग धर्मश्रद्धेचा उदय होत असतो. ही अगम्य विश्वरचना, ती जिच्यामुळे संचलित होते, ती अतार्किक, अनामिक, गूढ शक्ती, त्या शक्तीचं मानवावरचं वर्चस्व आणि मानवाचं तिच्या पुढील असलेलं नगण्यत्व, ह्यामुळे माणूस श्रद्धा बाळगायला लागतो. अशी कोणती शक्ती असेल किंवा नसेल, ती आहे असं मानून तिला शरण जाणारं मानवी मन हा खानोलकरांचा विषय आहे. कोंडुऱ्यातील साऱ्या सामाजिक जीवनानं या शक्तीचं दास्य विना अट आणि बिन तक्रार असं मान्य केलेलं आहे. आणि या शक्तीचा प्रतिनिधी आहे कोंडुरा. अशा प्रकारे मानवाचं या विश्वातील अस्तित्व, त्याच्यावरचे नियतीचे वर्चस्व, मानवाचं स्वतःच त्या अस्तित्वाला आधारभूत म्हणून निर्माण केलेले श्रद्धा आणि पाप पुण्य संकल्पनांचे कडे, या सर्वांचाच विचार मग खानोलकर कोंडुरामध्ये पुन्हा पुन्हा करताना दिसतात. गंमत अशी की कशाचीच उत्तरं न देता ही कादंबरी पुन्हा पुन्हा अनेक प्रश्न निर्माण करून वाचकाला अंतर्मुख करून सोडते. तर अशी ही कोंडुरा. मी जेव्हा खानोलकरांचा अभ्यास करायला कोकणात गेले, तेव्हा कोंडुऱ्याला आवर्जून भेट दिली. आणि मग मला आश्चर्य असं वाटलं की एक छोटस स्थान, डोंगराचा कडा, जांभ्याचा कडा असा नागाच्या फणीसारखा वरती आलेला आहे आणि त्या फण्याच्या टोकावरती एक छोटस देऊळ आहे आणि त्याचं दैवताचं नाव आहे कोंडुरा. इथे लोक पूजा करतात, नारळ वाहतात. पण अशा या छोट्याशा कोकणातल्या एका निसर्ग स्थानाला खानोलकरांनी आपल्या प्रतिभेने अजरामर करून ठेवलेला आहे. तर अशी ही कादंबरी, खानोलकरांची अतिशय लोकप्रिय कादंबरी कोंडुरा वाचायलाच हवी.
I am sure you will love to read the novel Kondura that explores the human subconscious and that underlines the effect of circumstances on human behavior. In the next episode of Granthyatra, we shall explore a collection of poetry that focuses on the force of creativity. Until then, keep reading.